Hi again, everyone. Today we're going to do 2018 Cable Accounts Unit 2, Paper 2, Question 2 on Costing Systems, looking at Lassoy Limited. In this question, we are required to calculate the predetermined factory overhead rate for each department, calculate the overhead costs, and determine the cost of the job. So to find the predetermined overhead rate, we need to have the total estimated cost for overhead costs for each department, as well as the total estimated units that they're going to use. So we see here that Department X is labor intensive and uses obviously labor costs, whereas Department Y is dependent on machines and will be using machine hours. So we can now enter the information appropriately. So Department X, we say, uses direct labor costs. So the direct labor cost for Department X is 600,000. Let's put that in. And the total estimated cost for Department X is 900,000. So when I divide that, it should give me the predetermined rate for Department X, right? And we see that is 1.5 or 150% of the labor costs. Good. Department Y, on the other hand, uses machine hours. So the machine hours for Department Y is 80,000. And the total estimated overhead cost is 660,000. So again, this should give us the rate for Department Y. And we see it's 8.25, which is that each machine hour is $8.25, right? So per machine hour. Okay, good. So that answers A. So let's move to B. Now B is asking us to calculate the total overhead cost for job 748. So this is job 748 here. And we want the total overhead costs for the job. Now I've transferred the rates that we just calculated into my answer sheet. So the activity rate. And we know to find the overhead cost, we just got to multiply the number of units used up by the particular job times the rate. So since Department X is using direct labor hours, I'll just come here, get the direct labor hours, and I'm going to multiply it by 1.5 or find 150% of that number. So this is $14,000 times 1.5 will tell us that Department X, the overhead for job 748 is $21,000, and for Department Y, in that same job, where we're using machine hours, we can see that the machine hours is 6,000. So I'm plug in the 6,000, and we will get a total of 49,500. So when I add the two departments together, I'll get the total overhead cost for the job. So 21 plus 49,500 gives me 70,500, and that is the total overhead cost for job 748, right? So now the part B of the question, part 2 of that question says, so what's the unit cost if the job contains 200 units? All right, so to find the unit cost, we got to include the materials, the labor, and the overheads. All right, so I've transferred in the information because it's given here. We just calculated the overhead costs, so I applied them, 21 and 49,500, and I copy the rest of the information. So that gives us that the total production cost in Department X is 165,000, and the total production cost in Department Y was 76,500. when I add the two together, it gives me that the total production cost of the 200 units is 241,500. Now, the unit cost, I simply divide by the number of units produced. So it clearly says that there were 200 units produced. So I just divide by the 200, and that should give me the cost per unit. All right, so the cost per unit is $1,207.50. So that answers part B. So let's go to part C of the question. And part C of the question is asking us to do marginal costing or an absorption costing. So we want to find the per unit value of the inventory if we use marginal costing, and we want to find the profit if we use the absorption approach. All right, so let's do that. Let's move to part C. So for part C then, to find the marginal cost, we know that what we have to do to get a marginal cost is to use all of the variable components. So variable, anything that says variable, right, we're going to use those as long as it's part of the production. So it will be the materials, which is already variable since that changed by the number of items produced, the labor, and then these indirect variable activities. So we got unit values already. So the materials is $30 per unit. The labor was $25 per unit. So all I needed now was to get the per unit value of the overheads. All right, so we were given some overhead figures. We were told that the indirect materials were 420,000, right? The indirect labor was 364,000, and the indirect overheads, factory overheads, right, was 60% of this 560. Now 60% of 560, if we were to calculate that, so let's bring up the calculator. $60 of 560 is 336,000. So we're going to put those three numbers in. So 420,000, 364,000, and 336,000, right? We add those together and we get a total of 1,120,000. So that would be all of the indirect contributions. And what I want really is the unit, what's the unit value of this indirect contribution. So all it says is take the information here, the 1,120,000, and divide it by the number of units that were produced. Right? It says we actually produced 70,000, so divide that by the 70,000. And that tells me that that per unit value of the variable production overheads is $16. So now I can add all three together, 30 plus 25 plus 16, and that will give me that the per unit value of the closing stock under the marginal approach is $71. Now, of course, I could have easily multiply out all these, every single thing here by 70, or divide all these numbers here by 70 to get the answers. Right? So let's say I were to multiply out these by 70. All right, that's 2 million and something, right? And 25 times 7 is 175, so that's 1,750,000. Notice that I get the exact same answer, right? I would get the exact same answer. All right, so whichever way we go, we could have arrived at the $71 for the per unit cost. So let's now come down to the part C, part 2 of C. which is asking us to do the absorption approach. Now, absorption says that we focus on the production first and then take away the selling and admin afterwards. So we want the income. So obviously the first thing we're going to work out is the sales. All right. So 90 times the number of items sold, 65,000. So we sold 65,000. And 90 times 65,000, that is 5,850,000. All right. The direct materials, we just transfer them in. We multiply out and transfer in. But now the overheads, notice that overheads would be is absorption. So there's no, it doesn't matter if it's variable or not. Everything got going. So 420 plus the 364 plus the 560 will make up all of the overheads, right? Even though I wrote factory overheads, I mean all the overheads. All right. So we add all of them together and we get the overheads. So what's this added together? All right. So let's add that quickly. Can't do that in my head. So let's work it out. So we got 420 plus 364 plus 560. So that gives me 1,344,000. So let's put that in 1,344,000. All right, and that gives me now that the total cost of manufacturing is 5,194,000, and we want to find the rate to multiply out the stock. So therefore, take the first of all, that closing stock is we had 70 and we sold 65, so we're left with 5,000. So the 5,000 is here, and now we need the rate. So take the 5,194,000 divided by the number of units produced, as you did here just now, and you get 74.2. So remember that absorption costing will usually give you a higher figure than marginal costing because it includes obviously the fixed overheads. So let's multiply out this number and we get that the closing inventory, when I multiply 5,000 by the 74.2, is 371,000, and therefore we're going to subtract that to get the cost of the goods sold, right? So cost of goods sold. All right, and subtract the cost of goods sold from the revenue, and that will give us the gross profit. And then we take out all the selling and admin expenses, whether they're fixed or variable, don't matter. All of them got to take out. So therefore, we're taking out the 1,050,000, and that leaves us with a net profit or a net loss in this case of $23,000, and that will be the end of that question. All right, so there you have it. Thank you again for participating. I hope that you did try along the question as I was doing it. And I know you won't do it as quickly, but do try it on your own. And I'll check you again next time.